Hello to Brenda and all members of staff at St Patrick's College, Maghera. My name is Helen Day. I'm a principal trainer with Pivotal Education. Thank you so much for sending in your behaviour policy. I've had an opportunity to read through that document, and over the next few minutes I'm going to be talking about the positives in that document, but also how you can move forward with that document. So the first thing I want to say is certainly at the beginning of your behaviour policy, you talk in a very positive way with the language that you use about your hopes for the learners at your school, that you want them to be happy and safe, and using the gospel values, wanting them to be respected and to be treated with dignity. And I think that's a really positive start to your behaviour policy that needs to really run through, that tone needs to run throughout your policy. You've got a very clear sanction policy, I think your B1s to 4s, which I think give staff a really clear indication of the step sanctions that they should be employing. And I may advise you that perhaps that alongside that you're talking to all members of staff about de-escalation techniques, what they can do to actually de-escalate the situation before they even need to get into the B1s to B4s. I really like the fact that you talk very positively about praise, and particularly about praise where you recognise that your youngsters go above and beyond, because that's exactly where we should be targeting our praise and our recognition, not praising those students for getting it right in the way that we expect, but for going above and beyond in whatever way you choose to focus in on that. So I would encourage you to really promote that idea of going above and beyond when we're looking at praise. And I've never seen this in any other behaviour policy, and I've read quite a lot. I really like the idea that you focused in on lunchtime supervisors, those people who are key people at that time, at lunchtime or at break time, when our youngsters are outside of the normal boundaries and expectations of lessons, perhaps, at least in their mind, and yet you have lunchtime supervisors who are proficient in and supported in being able to give consequences both for positive and negative behaviour. So I really applaud you for that. In terms of where you can go with this, Brenda, you said in your email that you recognise that this was long. I have to say it was one of the longest policies I've read for quite some time. I think it's about 59 pages long. Now, this is the issue. You know, we can have these documents and we can give them out to staff, and we think we've ticked the boxes in terms of having our behaviour policy, but the issue is that we know through research that pretty much in most schools only 10% of staff actually read the behaviour policy, and seriously, when there's 59 pages, the 10% who are reading it, how much of it are they actually going to remember? So what I'd encourage you to do is really pare that policy down. I wonder if you can get that policy down to just one side of A4, and on that one side of A4 you condense everything that's in this large document. You talk about what your step sanctions are, you talk about your praise policy, you say what your rules are and your expectations, what your value systems are. One side of A4 that every teacher has on their desk, that every supply teacher who comes into the school is given your behaviour policy to refer to as an active document throughout the day. The other thing I would be looking at is changing your praise and reward policy to a praise and recognition policy. We know that actually more often than not our youngsters gain value from the recognition that they get from the significant adult. They're not really that interested in rewards. They like certificates, of course, and stickers and all those sorts of things, but it's the recognition, and I'm wondering whether we can change our focus more on recognising when our students are going above and beyond. In terms of your praise policy, I'm wondering, again, you could put this down on your one side of A4, whether you couldn't be more specific in terms of your expectations and to give a tighter structure in what you want your staff to be giving in terms of praise and recognition. So I'm wondering whether you couldn't actually state in your policy, actually, when you are in this school, what we expect every teacher to do is to do 1 positive phone call home a week, 3 postcards home a week, and 5 positive texts. What difference do you think it could make to your school if every single member of staff actually signed up to that praise and recognition policy, recognising when our students go above and beyond through a positive phone call, 3 postcards home, and 5 texts? I think that could be quite a subtle shift that brings quite a significant cultural change to your school. You talk in 2 places, both in terms of your reward policy, but also in your sanction policy, where you give staff a certain amount of freedom to do what they want to do, that each class or department can come up with their own praise and recognition, and in the same way that staff could, above and beyond the B1 to B4, use sanctions such as picking up litter or clearing graffiti. I would urge you to step away from that. Again, what we hear up and down the country is schools wanting consistency. We know that teachers want consistency, parents want consistency, our youngsters want consistency. When we start to write in our policy, giving departments free rein as to how they implement appraisal recognition or what that looks like, as well as sanction policy, then we are prone to building an inconsistency in the very thing that we need to be strong and stable. So I would encourage you to veer away from that. You talk a lot about detentions in your policy, where there is a graduated response of a 10-minute break time to a lunchtime to after school to go right through to a Saturday detention. Generally, when I see that much focus on detentions, I am curious as to whether actually that detention system really is serving and supporting you. I'm wondering whether the same names aren't appearing each and every time on those detention lists where they are not responding to the initial ones. And to that extent, is your detention system really working? And if it's not, then you may want to think about doing something else. But where I would encourage, and I think you highlight it, you kind of mention it, but really we have a responsibility as educators that when we have a situation where there is challenging behaviour and we need to keep that child behind, you're quite right, we don't just give out lines or some archaic response to what we can fill that detention time with. What I'd be encouraging is in that time where you keep a child back to be looking at how to repair and restore that relationship between the teacher and the child, but also to help the child focus in on their behaviour. What is it they can do differently next time? And really, that should be the focus of any time given to a child being kept back in order for them to repair and restore the situation. So I'd again look at your behaviour policy and what you can do about that. It's not clear necessarily, certainly straight off, about what the rules of your school is. And I would be thinking about, what is it? And putting it quite early on in your document, what are our rules here in our school? And invariably when I go around the country, I talk to people, I talk to children, I talk to teachers, and nobody really knows what the rules are. What if you actually pared your rules down to just 3 rules? Ready, respectful, safe. Ready, respectful, safe. Just having those rules which in a language that can just be interwoven into our everyday exchanges. Well done, I can see that everyone is ready today. Thank you so much for holding the door open. That was really respectful. I can see that everyone's got their chairs on the floor. I can see everyone's being safe. You can hear, can't you, that these rules that are somewhere, quite often separate from us or on a wall in a document that we might refer to if we remember, they get forgotten about. And again, there's an inconsistency. And yet, when we pare it down to just ready, respectful, safe, how perhaps you can look at your present rules and realise just how easily they fit under those titles or something similar. So I hope this short video has given you some ideas about what you can do to move forward in terms of your behaviour policy. Of course, if we can be any more help to you, don't hesitate to give us a ring at the office. In the meantime, I wish you all the very best. Thank you very much.